Now that we've got the flying saucer made, we're going to make the planet that it'll revolve around when we animate it. Hold down the spacebar, go to Create, Polygon Primitives, Sphere. Drag a sphere in the middle of your composition. And in the top view, I'm going to make sure that it's centered properly. If we hit 4 on the keyboard, we get the wireframe. If I hold down X after I hit W, the middle of the vertices turns into a circle as opposed to a yellow box. Now I can click and snap it directly to the center of the viewport. Return to the viewport for the perspective. With the poly surface selected, with the polygon sphere selected, right-click and choose Assign New Material. Arnold, AI Standard Surface. Name the new texture. Be sure to hit Return to set the name. Under the Color node, click on the checkerboard and apply the checker texture. We're going to go to the UV map now, and then the UV editor map. We're going to scale this so that the checker boxes look somewhat square. I'll right-click on the shell in the UV editor and choose UV shell. When I select it, I'll hit R to get my scale tool. And I want those checker squares to be more like a checkerboard, something like that. Now once I've got it pretty close to what I want, I'll scale the whole thing to fit inside the checkerboard area of the UV editor. I'll return to the object mode for my planet shape and reselect it in its object mode. And in the editor, I'll go to Image, UV Snapshot. I'll direct it to my folder, and once I've saved it and applied it, I can now go into Photoshop to develop that texture. I've opened up the UV map inside of Photoshop that we created for our planet sphere. I've also gone out online to get a photograph that I can use to make a texture for my planet. I'm going to copy and paste this picture of Mars into the UV map for our planet. Placing it below the UV map, I can kind of move this around to fit where I might want it to go. Now the only trick to creating a texture that's seamless without a line through it is that whatever appears on the left-hand side has to appear on the right side in some capacity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my marquee tool. I'm going to make a selection along the edge of the UV map, and then I'll move it so that's right against the left-hand side of the UV map. I'm going to copy that bit of information. That piece of that file will be copied to its own layer. I'll go up to Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste Special, Paste in Place. And it puts it directly where the original is, only above. I'm going to hit Command T, right-click inside, and choose Flip Horizontal. I'll shift and drag that over to the other side, and I'll hit Return. Now I'm going to put a layer mask on that new texture layer, and with a brush and a soft edge to it, I can now soften where these two layers meet. Now I'm going to save this. With my sphere selected, I'll right-click and choose Material Attributes. I'll break the connection by clicking on the word Color with the right mouse and choosing Break Connection. I'll follow the checkerboard out from the Color node to File, and I'll find that newly generated texture. Now, one last thing I need to do is turn off the UV map. So I'll return to Photoshop, turn off the UV map, make sure that you save, return to Maya, and if you go to the Material Attribute again, and if you were to click on the little box where we entered our texture and click on the word Reload, it'll reload the texture without the UV map. And you can see by copying the left-hand side of our document and dragging it over to the right seam of the UV map, we now have a seamless texture on our planet. Now to add one last element to the planet itself, we're just going to repurpose the texture in the bump map so that it has a little bit of a texture to it. So I'll right click and go to my material attribute once again. And the first thing I want to do is I want to take that shine that is on the planet off. Under specular, I'll change the weight to 0. And that will flatten out the texture. Now, if we move further down in the color node, you'll see the word geometry. And if you click on that tab, you'll see bump mapping. Follow the checkerboard, go out to your file once again, and go to the folder, apply your planet skin, and you'll see now it's giving you a texture based on the white through black features on your texture. Now, if I wanted to edit the effects of this further, I could go up to the top of the node now for the bump, and if I click on this little second box down with the triangle, it takes me to the bump value. And the bump depth is what we can change. The bump value cannot be changed because that has been occupied by this texture. So if I was to drag further to the right, the texture becomes more pronounced. The blacks recede and lighter values push even further forward. If we were to go to the left, the numbers start to go minus, and the opposite happens. The light values push forward and the blacks push back.